Start again there. So sorry about that false start. But anyway, we're going to start again. My name's Nick Chatterton. I'm one of the module team, or was one of the module team involved in producing this new module, Concepts in Chemistry. And today you're going to learn what's it all about. I'm also the qualification lead for chemistry. So with me, I have some of my colleagues. First of all, Kate to my left.
Hi, I'm Kate Nixon. I'm a physical chemist and one of the authors on S218. I also am a tutor on S112, and in my research, I collide electrons with molecules to image molecular orbitals.
Hi, and so I'm Daniel Payne. I'm one of the organic chemists who have been on the production of S218. I'm relatively new to the OU. If you've done some of the other modules, you may have seen me around, but not much. For research, I make organic molecules that interact with light, and we use those as anti-cancer drugs as well. So that's my research here at the OU.
Hello, my name is Jitendra Majithia. I'm the curriculum manager on S218, and I look after all the.
She looks after us, makes sure we stay on track. On screen, we've also got Rob. Rob, do you want to say something about your very important role?
I don't know about very important, but it's Rob James here. I chaired production of the module. I've been involved in various chemistry production modules over the years. I've been a tutor in the past, and I'm a staff tutor based in Cardiff.
So just to say, I should also say this at the start, is we've got two options. We're going to run through a sort of general sort of overview of important aspects of this module. But if you do have any questions at the end of the broadcast, which will be maybe 30, 40 minutes time, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. You can either do that using the chat function or the Q&A function, which you should see at the top of the screen. Okay, so that's where, and we'll obviously have an opportunity to go through this with you at the end. So anything that comes to mind, just put it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer for you at the end. Okay, so what's the purpose of today's event? So we've already met some of the team, and we're kind of going to explain what the purpose for Rewrite is, so a bit of a behind the scenes on why you do this kind of thing, why you update these modules. Chemistry doesn't necessarily change all that much, but it does change in some ways. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of why we've done things the way we've done it. And also we're going to give you an idea on the focus on some of the employability skills that you'll get through studying this module. So before we get into that, I'd like to get into sort of, what does the module look like? We're going to start with what the module actually looks like. So we've got a few sort of slides, and we're going to talk through some various aspects that are going to show you what the module looks like. So I'm going to hand over to Rob to start this.
Yeah, so sustainability is a theme that sort of runs throughout the module. It's a really sort of hot area at the moment, rapidly expanding, really because it's vital for chemists to be doing what they do in a way that has sort of minimum impact on the environment, whether we're talking about large scale manufacturing processes or chemists working in the lab. We've got a number of experts in the field who are helping us teach this. We can see on screen there Professor Cole Hamilton from St Andrews University. He teaches a lot of the introductory sustainability material towards the beginning of the module, and also talks about his research. I think here he's talking about how he's extracted oils from cashew nut shells, which are actually useful in pharmaceutical manufacture. And on the left there, you can see a whole list of areas which include sustainability, but they also extend to a number of topics which, if you like, you could call real world practical chemistry. We look at spectroscopy of sunscreens, vitamin C determination in fruit juice. And Dan, in his blog, you may mention it in a moment, he actually looks at how certain pharmaceutical drugs are synthesized. So a mixture there of sustainability, which is a really important area for us in the module, and also a number of real world chemical examples.
Okay, so next is me. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've used various sort of, I guess, visual ways to get across some of the concepts in chemistry. So chemistry is a very kind of a visual subject. There's a lot of what happens when things collide? How can we get across these moving sort of objects, and how can we deliver that material hopefully most effectively for the students who are studying it? So this is something we'll talk about. We work closely with our colleagues in the other part of the university in developing these, and I'll mention a bit more about that later. But we've got a whole range of these as you run through the module, and I guess at this stage, I think we're hoping that students who study the material will in fact get a lot of that out of this and find them useful. So moving on to Dan.
Yeah, we've also, so this is, you may not have seen this in any modules before, but we've got within the chemistry team a new piece of technology, which are these light boards. So this allows us to teach you directly. So you see us writing what appears to be in thin air, and this is going to be used a lot throughout 218. So it allows us to explain concepts to you directly and to work through problems with us.
And I think we're kind of thinking it's hopefully going to give a bit more of a personal touch as well. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so you get to see us a lot more than you say traditionally would in other modules and that you have in the past.
Cool.
Okay, so this module also includes some interactive experiments. There are two different types of calorimetry. So the first one is looking at different phases of chocolate and how they're formed when you melt chocolate and cool it down under different conditions. So you learn how to cool chocolate to its optimum phase, which gives chocolate its smooth texture, its shiny coat, and also it snaps when it's broken. The other type of calorimetry that we're going to look at is to measure the energy released when chemical reactions occur. Another new feature of S218 is the introduction of coding. So we start from the very beginning of coding, so you don't need any prior experience to be able to study this module. We'll introduce you to the language of Python and work through some activities which will give you a flavour for the different types of things that you can do with coding, from data analysis to plotting graphs and to using mathematical models such as predicting the different speeds of molecules when they're in a gas at different temperatures.
Okay, so you saw, Nick mentioned earlier on that chemistry is a very visual subject, and you saw Kate there working in the lab, demonstrating a number of experiments. A bit more here, and along similar lines, we've actually built in a number of lab demonstrations in the module as we go along. Not only that, we will give you an insight into the world of the practical laboratory chemist by looking at a number of standard or important techniques that a particularly synthetic chemist will carry out.
And then finally, you may have noticed that we've got a labcast, and also that forms part of the EMA, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and the EMA assessment. But in terms of the labcast, we're looking at doing a live experiment with you, monitoring a molecule that switches shape when you expose it to light. And so we're going to record data in real time that evening with you, and then go through how to plot and process that data to calculate physical properties. So both myself and Kate and our colleague Sean will be there with you for that evening.
Okay, so now it's talking a bit about why we did it the way we did it. I think we're going to hand over to Rob and Dan to discuss this.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose why has the module been updated? Well, the predecessor module S215 was first presented in 2014, and that's a typical lifespan of a module. Various reasons, really. We know that the topic is constantly moving. There's always new research going on, new developments in the field. We mentioned sustainability already, and also the skills that are required of a chemist kind of change as time moves on. Kate very briefly mentioned the coding that we teach as well. I think those are the main reasons. A lot of the chemistry is still the same, doesn't change, but as we can see on the screen, there's a whole range of new methods that we can use to teach it. Dan, did you want to jump in?
I guess, yeah, I was just going to say, a lot, as you know, from 2014 to now, especially technology-wise, a lot has changed from when that module was produced to what we can achieve now, and hopefully you'll see that in this module we're using cutting-edge technologies, including the animations, the experiments with Kate, the Lightboard videos, lab recordings. So it's going to be a lot more, there's going to be a lot more media and interactivity in there than what you may have seen in modules in the past. So it should be quite cool, to be honest, to see all of that together.
Yeah, I think we're all excited to see how it goes and how students sort of take all this in. And say it looks really cool on the screen so far. Right, so what's next? Okay, so this is talking about the wider team, isn't it? I think now. So you obviously, once students are studying modules, they hear a lot from the academics and also from the support curriculum managers such as Dolly as the presentation goes on. But we thought it'd be quite worth telling you about the sort of wider team and the large number of people who are involved in production of a module like this. So just a few examples on the screen there. all the sort of diagrams, the figures that you see are basically often start off in the top, as I've got in the top left-hand corner, of some simple sort of literal hand-drawn picture that's been sort of sketched together and then shared with our artist colleagues who bring it to life, make it much more visual, communicate the ideas much more clearly than maybe we could, because they're the absolute experts in this. Similarly, when we sort of are developing videos, there's a whole wide range of people involved. So there's storyboards. In terms of the broadcast videos, you'll often get a team of maybe 5 to 10 people involved. You may only see 1 or 2 presenters on screen. There'll be a whole range of people involved in developing these videos. And this is sort of I guess a key bit where Dolly comes in. So it's communicating between us and them. If you want to say a little bit about your role.
Yes. So I know Nick is keep mentioning me as Dolly, but that's fine.
Apologies.
But my name is Jitendra, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, but mostly module team knows me as Dolly because it's easy to say. So so my involvement in S218 production is, as I mentioned, is a curriculum manager, which is quite similar to a project manager role. And what my responsibility in faculty is basically initiating the production, early meetings for the production, and this production for the whole S218, it takes 2 years to do the whole module. And so I kickstart with the early meetings with the authors and the other representatives in the various departments.
Link everything
together, and I look at all the schedules, if all the task has been done, and all the budgeting required for this particular production. So I oversee all that, the management level of the whole production. So that's where I come in.
And it's a massive job to link all these different people, different people's schedules, pulling it all together. So that's exactly a really key role. So
and I guess we should just in that 2 years of production, there's a lot of times when you may not know it, but you also feed into it as students and prospective students of these modules. So there's been students who studied 215 fed into 218. We had student interns who looked at new material and how to do it. Some of the tutors that will be on 218 looked at our module, looked at the materials that you'll be learning and gave us feedback. And we also have critical readers who are academics who have worked at the OU for 10, 20, sometimes I think 45 years in the case of my critical reader, he's worked here. And so they feed in as well for these.
Yeah, so I worked with a critical reader, and I found them really helpful because they do have experience in teaching these topics that I don't have. And so they're really great at being able to tell you where students traditionally find things a bit tricky, and so you can make sure that you explain those things slowly and clearly. And they also can feed into your activities that you've asked students to do, and whether they are really important and they're teaching something useful, or whether they're just making the students be busy, which is not what we want. We want to make sure that everything that we're asking the students to do is actually for a reason, and they're learning something by doing those activities.
Brilliant. So yeah, Rob, anything else you would like to add? Because obviously you've been our supremo through the whole process.
Well, I don't know about supremo. I think the editors obviously have worked with us. They're not just people who dot the I's and cross the T's and tell us our grammar are wrong. They're very much involved in the structure of all the blocks, looking at workload, which is important. We try and keep tabs on. Basically, we'll keep the workload at a reasonable level for you guys when you're studying the module. And the editors give us some really good feedback on that, and also better ways of expressing certain points, a bit like Kate was saying about critical readers. But so the editors who work with us do a massive amount, really.
And so I guess part of it as well is part of the student feedback and your tutor's feedback and yours is that in the new modules, there's going to be a 4-week period of foundations and key concepts to prepare you for studying this module. Which was feedback that we got before the jump from level 1 to level 2, and that there needed to be more foundation work, which Rob, I think, wrote part of, or all of, maybe all of.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And also we want to make sure for those of you that are going on to level 3 chemistry that, we're teaching you the right stuff to set you up for that as well.
So when I was writing my blocks, I kind of drew a lot on the fact that I like doing experiments, and I learn a lot from doing experiments. So during the physical chemistry, you're going to come into the lab with me quite a bit, and we're going to watch some chemical reactions happen. So I'm going to demonstrate some quick chemical reactions, and if the reactions take a little bit longer, I'll show you how to set them up, and then we'll just let them go, and I'll give you the data later. And it's that data that you're going to be analysing and looking at, which really then helps to cement the key concepts once you process all of that data.
I guess we do the same in organic as well. It's going to be a bit different from when you've seen organic to level 1, as opposed to learning hundreds and hundreds of reactions in memory fashion. We're really going to now go back to learn a few core concepts and a set of easy to follow rules, and you'll apply those to new problems to solve things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have seen before. So it should hopefully be a smoother ride to get through S218 in the organic chemistry.
And speaking about problem solving, I think really one of the key ways to test if you've been keeping up with the module and been understanding the concepts that we've been teaching you is to apply them to problems, to give them a go, to do calculations, to give explanations. And so in the physical chemistry block, every 4 to 5 study sessions, I've created a study session that's dedicated to giving you time and space to work through a series of problems. This helps giving you practice to work through problems, but it also helps you in your revision as well. So it may highlight bits and pieces of the module where you need to go back and read again just to cement those concepts.
And I guess problem solving is like a key skill as well for employability and skill building.
Yep, and that's, I guess, another thing to bring to your attention really at this stage is that we've built in a whole range of different types of skills, employability skills. We mentioned coding earlier. It's viewed really as being a sort of key and indispensable skill for not just chemists, but a whole range of graduate skills going forward. So it's one of the reasons we included it. So handling big data, data analysis, visualization. These are the kind of things that an employer will require on graduation. So we've started that, and as mentioned earlier, we've started at a sort of introductory level, but getting on to a reasonable level in terms of plotting graphs, analysing data. So hoping that's going to be a useful skill for you guys moving forward. Other stuff we've got problem solving. We've already mentioned that. It's a key and underpinning part of chemistry, and there's a whole range of different ways that can be done as you go through the materials. We've also looked at digital literacy. It was mentioned earlier. We've got some stuff to do with sustainability. So sort of critically evaluating and communicating information. That's something we're also going to be testing as well. And also, yes, Dan?
We've got lab skills. We've attempted to build lab skills into the new module, and data collection, data processing, and how to work with that data along with core lab skills, which hopefully will help to support you if you then go on to do the level 2 and level 3 lab skills. All the concepts that you're going to be looking at in 218 will then move on to the level 2 lab skills if you want to attend those.
Good plug.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So the last thing, or second to last thing, really, is to look at really just the changes to assessment. So I think this is back over to Rob.
Okay. So assessment. Well, first of all, there's no exam. We actually assess slightly differently at the end. We have an end of module assessment. Oh, thanks, Katrina, for explaining what that means. EMA, tend to call them EMAs, which is an extended piece of work that is largely based on the LabCast that Dan was talking about earlier, and it also pulls together a number of concepts from across the module. There's preparation time for the EMA, and I think you submit it first week in June. Other than that, we have 5 TMAs and 2 ICMAs, which is fairly standard, I think, for OU module, but we have actually built in preparation weeks for each TMA into the schedule to give you time, obviously, to prepare the TMA, but also pause for a bit of consolidation and possibly catch up if you're maybe getting a little bit behind. So, yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's the assessment.
Brilliant. Anything else you want to say on the assessment? There's mentioned the LabCast and how it's all fits together. Yeah, so I think that's the main things we wanted to talk about today. So basically, I hope that was an interesting and informative sort of overview of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I guess at this stage, we're going to hand over to sort of, first of all, hand over to anyone for any questions.
There are 2 questions, actually. So one of the questions is, why does it take 2 years to produce the module?
This is a very good question.
It is a good question.
Who fancied answering this? Well volunteered, Rob.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think there's so much to do really. I mean, it sounds like a long time. I think going way back, I think it used to take something like 5 years. I when I first started at the OU. So we have become more efficient at the whole process, and I think we've hinted on all the different people that are involved to make things happen, and obviously everyone's doing other things as well. So I think it all sort of adds
To
up
try and
into probably
ensure-
taking, yeah.
So I was just, I guess
No.
it's to try and ensure as well that everything's correct. I mean, it goes through one piece of text goes through 4 or 5 reviews with different people, and it goes backwards and forwards to make sure that the text is correct. So I guess it's to ensure that everything's done
There's all kinds
thoroughly.
of hidden things like clearance of rights as well.
Yeah.
So if you're reusing images, you've got to contact the original person reusing video. There's times, so it's not just constantly typing words that are going to go on the page. There's all the other sort of work around it that is part of the process. And that's part of the reason it takes 2 years. But as I say, a lot of it is the checking and then making sure it's
I guess
correct.
we spend a lot of time planning as well at the beginning, right? So that blocks link with blocks so that they kind of, you flow through the module following on from like physical is linked with the organic and sustainability is linked with inorganic, but those are different authors. So I guess that takes some level of discussion between authors.
Okay, we got another question. Do you, as we mentioned, we had student feedback and we had a student intern. So do you ever invite students to sit on the module team or have them more formally involved in the module production?
Oh.
I think the intern
It's for you, Paul Lead, isn't it?
Yeah, it was actually quite a formal thing, wasn't it? We had Shannon working with us quite, almost full time early on, and certainly she gave myself and Nick quite a bit of feedback on our blocks, and I think she attended a couple of meetings as well, and very helpful actually to get her perspective, especially in the early stages, I think.
I mean, I think we found it very useful and learned a lot from it. And I suppose the thing about it is it's a long-term commitment. So Shannon was doing for a few months, which was great. So at the start, it would be quite a lot to ask for someone, and I don't know if there's the formal process behind for get someone to be involved all the way through. But it is a thing. Certainly, I think we found valuable, and I think maybe it's certainly going to be used in future modules when they're being produced as well.
I think the other thing also to consider is we want a range of student voices. Like we had this student intern and she was one voice, but different students have different opinions on what works and what doesn't, and what they find easy, what they struggle with. So having input from the tutors as to where things work well and where they don't, and we had we did have a wider range of student input, didn't we, rather than just the intern, didn't we? So I think that's important to keep in mind that you do need that range of student input.
I guess that there's also levels of student feedback that maybe you don't realise. Like for the organic, I looked at the last few presentations of forum posts to see what students were struggling with or where a lot of questions got asked. And because the general posts we can see back. So even that is in a way student feedback, and you get quite a lot of students from S215 that way. Looking at what common threads come along first.
And I guess the other thing which you've already mentioned is obviously the tutors will receive emails from the S215 tutors who we've been in contact during this process will, over the many years that module's run through, of common things that have come up that can be fed back into what our thought process is when we're redesigning it. So I think as you say, it's a really important thing, and I think it has been very insightful.
Yeah, we got one more question actually. When we got another one, is there any reason why you took away the exam? Not that I like exam. What was the reason?
Rob, I can have a go.
Yeah, I mean, a number of reasons really. I think we thought it was probably the most appropriate form of assessment for what we're trying to teach. What else? I mean, it was something we debated for a long time actually. 1 minute we had an exam, then an EMA, and I think eventually we settled on the EMA. It allows us to do stuff around the LabCast, more problem-solving element to it, I think. Nick, do you want to add anything? I'm probably missing something important here.
I think there's a few things not a few things you missed, but there are a few things to say. I think it's like partly gives you more flexibility. I think. an EMA and that you can do a range of things. Doesn't always have to be the same stuff each year. You've got a bit more flexibility on how you can do it, which I think is good. It's been commented on positively by our externals who said this is more sort of like how a chemist would work, and there is some critiquing of exams these days. There's a lot more possibility for sort of authentic learning is what they call it in the trade. So real problems that you're solving in a real way, like a real student would. We've also, just to say, we have factored in partly the advantage that exams have. We have factored in the ICMAs because one of the big advantages of exams is the time that students spend preparing for them, as well as the exam itself. So the ICMAs, we're hoping that a lot of the, if you like, factual and right, wrong or calculation-y type stuff will be tested in those. So students will be asked to prepare for those and do them in a bit like an exam. So that's kind of part of the assessment strategy also.
Yeah, just to add to that about the ICMAs, yeah, we do. There is a timed element to them, and the idea is that that sufficient time. So the questions are such that you should be able to complete them in an hour. So it's set up to be completed in an hour, but we're actually allowing 3 hours for the ICMA to be open once you start to when it closes. But yeah, I think Nick's right. It's the flexibility, I think, of the EMA that's key.
Yeah. I think the next question was, are these ICMA times? So Rob just mentioned.
Yeah, they are. They are. Yes.
Two of them.
But I mean, yeah, there's 2 of them. They're quite low weighted in terms of being 5% each. But like I say, the plan is, the idea is you complete them within an hour. But we've got that extra 2 hours there because just to take a bit of the pressure off, I think.
But I guess they're very much designed, right? That they're the core.
Yeah.
Underlying concepts which will help you in all of your other assessment to trick you or to be extremely difficult.
No.
Make sure you've got the fundamental knowledge to then make sure you go ahead on and excel on the TMAs.
I will add that. So. Yeah. Sorry, Danny, I just jump in. At the end of each block, there is a quiz, and these are very much in the same format as the ICMAs, and they're excellent practice. So if you're doing okay in the quizzes at the end of the blocks, the ICMAs should be straightforward, I think. But no, as Dan says, they're not designed to catch you out. It's testing purely the factual knowledge, the type of thing we can't really test so easily in an EMA.
One more question. How would students find out about opportunity to contribute to a module production if they want to be part of production?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, what was the process by which Shannon got to work with?
Yeah, this was a wider project within the university, and
I think it goes through the student internships route. I think we've had students helping on the remote experiments and things, so they would have gone out as part of internships, which I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly where those are advertised, but I believe it's a STEM program and they'll be advertised relatively regularly. We have one probably coming up later this year to help with outreach activities across the modules, so to help us design new more open to the public activities. We had one recently on level 3 experiment, so I think that's probably a good place to look, is where you find internship opportunities through the OU. The
other things is there are quite often, and not necessarily for a chemistry module, but broadly most years there's a consultative forum, which will be about various aspects. I've remember ones in the past about level 1, the 3rd year project module, and that's a great place to offer your opinions. And that, and it's a public forum, but it's a very supportive forum, and those opinions are taken very seriously. So that's another place, and I don't know what's coming up the next year, but most years there is normally a consultative forum of some sort relating to the curriculum.
That was the last question.
That was the last question.
That was the last question.
All right. Well, I guess thanks so much for coming. So hopefully, if you are taking a module,
I just saw in the chat. Just follow up on the module website. It says there's 3 ICMAs. Is that one is a practice?
Okay, yeah, the first one is simply practice. It's what we call a formative. It doesn't count. It's really just to, I think as we mentioned earlier on, the first 2 weeks are essentially a revision of level 1, and there's a quiz at the end, and it just gives you an indication of how prepared you are to carry on with the module, but it doesn't count. So technically, yes, there are 3 ICMAs, but the first one doesn't count to your overall grade.
Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, so thanks so much for coming. Hopefully you found it useful. The recording will be available soon on the science website, and if you want to, and if any questions come up from today's broadcast, you can we'll create a thread and you can put any questions in there. And yeah, so hopefully this was useful, sort of taste of what it's going to be like. So goodbye from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodbye for the rest of you. All right, thanks very much.
Bye.